Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Let's see what's happening here. Let's wait for some people to come in. Hey, Chris, how's it going? I'm hoping my tech works today, so I've started a little early here just to make sure things work. You know how that goes. I'm great. Hello from France. Paris loves us so much, definitely. My friends just went to Paris. Okay, so hey, Ra, how's it going? Okay, so let's wait for a couple people to come in and oh, thank you, Gerson. I know. I'm glad to be here in all my glory after all of the tech issues I've been having. I got a new camera. I got new microphone, which I don't, hopefully it sounds okay. Hey, amigo. Hola in India. Salute, Berliner 90. Hey, welcome everybody. So this show is called Libido Lift, and that is on purpose because we are going to continue to distinguish between healthy libido and hypersexuality and dig into your questions. So please, hey, Gregory, it's great to have you back. Let's see. Yeah, I did. I did post a video on family dysfunction and intergenerational trauma, and I'd love to dig into that. I tend to make videos of the topics that are on my mind and my heart. So yeah, that would be a good one for us to dig into. Hello to South Africa and Ontario, Canada. I am from Buffalo, New York. So Ontario, Canada is a place where I visited, Annette. We used to go to African lion safari back in the day. So that's fun. Oh, from Florida. Hey, Zay, how's it going? Tanzania, beautiful. Okay, we've got, so let's see, brain is fully suppressed from last 4 years. Talk about how long it takes a brain to recover. Definitely. So, I'm going to keep up with the chat. Jamie is not here. Okay, wait, so let me see something here. Let's see. Okay, apparently my bit rate is low, so I'm not quite sure how to increase one's bit rate, but okay, I think, let me just check. I'm using new software too, so I'm not quite sure how to do that, so we're gonna have to deal with that next time. So, okay. Oh, hello from Romania. Okay, so Alvaro, I'm great. Life's good. Okay, so let's talk about intergenerational trauma. I wish I knew how to change the bit rate, but this girl does not know how to do that. Let me just see really quick if I can. One second, and if I can't figure it out, then we're just going to keep going here with low bit rate. I can't figure it out. Okay, so let's talk about intergenerational trauma. Okay, so here's our focus. Libido Lift, this show. Hypersexuality, healthy sexuality. Many people confuse libido, which is the drive, a natural, healthy, neurological drive to be with a partner. People confuse that for hypersexuality. Now, how does intergenerational trauma come into play? The videos I made this week are on the subject. So tomorrow, there should be another Thursday, there should be another podcast video that's coming out that explains it longer. But the idea is that when we're young, if our parents don't meet our emotional needs, especially, Sometimes our parents don't meet any of our needs, our physical or our emotional needs, but especially our emotional needs, and to be nurtured, and especially in those difficult emotional times. So something bad happens to you and you can't tell anybody, and there's nobody there to help you work through the negative emotions. Now, when porn and explicit matter come on the scene and you find it, and it releases a flood of dopamine in your brain to take you away from the pain of whatever is happening in your life. But the intergenerational trauma that I'm specifically referring to is the fact that, having difficult emotions is part of the human condition. Being able to work through them is the skill that we want you to develop. We all wanted to be able to develop that when we were young. But if we didn't develop it because instead you escaped into porn, you actually didn't take all the opportunities to figure out how to emotionally regulate. Now, we know from the science that when you go to porn, it's escapism from feelings. And it's because you never learned how to process emotions. Emotions take 90 seconds to be processed. So when something bad happens, if you stay with it for 1.5 minutes and you let it move through you, then that trauma is released. That's neuroplasticity at its finest. And I'll give you an example, something challenging. I talk about it in the video. Something challenging happened 2 weeks ago, and my husband didn't want to tell me, this man. And I find out about it. I'm like, dude, why don't you tell me? And he's like, I didn't want you to be upset. I'm like, the thing is upsetting, which means if I'm upset in the moment and I let it move through me, that's okay. That is dealing with a natural negative human emotion. Being upset about it for a little bit, and I never freak out. My upsetness is, oh no, this is upsetting. So I can handle that. He couldn't handle my emotional response to upsetting news. But if you process the upsetting news, 90 seconds later, you've now dealt with it. And usually I move on to problem solving. So that's how you deal with emotions, not escaping into porn. When we're young, our parents didn't show us that. And actually, my 14-year-old daughter was saying to me the other day that she's really good at all of that stuff. And the reason she's good is because there's examples and there's adults helping her to do it. Me, my husband, her older brothers and sisters. She's really good at dealing with challenging stuff, but experiencing it, letting it move through her, not creating neurorigidity, and then being able to get back to life. So when it comes to porn use, that's escapism from emotions. So here's the challenge for you. The challenge is the next time you feel an emotion, it can be a negative emotion, it can be a natural emotion that's not totally negative, like boredom. And boredom these days is just lack of overstimulation. So if you're feeling bored, that's a natural feeling. You don't have to run and fill that void immediately. Or if you're feeling stressed out, feel it. If you feel upset about something, if you're angry, if you're sad, be angry, be sad. Don't pretend you're not and escape away from it. That's how you learn to emotionally regulate. But you might have to get yourself some time and some space to really feel your feelings. And especially if this is a new feeling for you, that's important. Now, what does it have to do with libido and hypersexuality? If you escape into porn, now you're caught in the hypersexual loop, which makes you confuse wanting to be with your partner for libido. So that's what we're talking about. All right, let me jump into the comments here for a second and we'll dive back in, and then we'll see what other questions we got here. Let's see. Oh, it's streaming fine. Thank you, Ed. Hopefully it's continuing to stream fine. Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. Hopefully it's still that way. Okay, from Melbourne. Hypersexuality, Diamond Mind. What is hypersexuality? Hypersexuality is thinking about sex, wanting sex, being pulled towards watching porn or explicit matter, which is now social media that's sexualized. So if you want to know if your brain's in a hypersexual mode, think about how many times you think about sex per day. I know what you're thinking. If you think about sex a lot, you might not know that your brain is in a hypersexual mode. Because if you're working and now you have a sexual thought, that might feel, typical to you. But if you're working, you should be able to focus on your work. If you have a sexual thought or if you want to go on porn, it's actually a call from your brain for dopamine. We know when your brain's been taught to go back to sex a lot, that's what hypersexuality is. It's for dopamine. It's a dopamine dependency. So that's very different than, say you're spending time with someone and now you feel attracted to them and now you feel like you want to have sex with them. That's very different than sexual thoughts popping into your brain when you're supposed to be working. Generally, there's noise in my room. I don't know what that is. It's probably picking up some background noise, but those two things are very, very different. Okay, so back to the question about, I see there's some questions about, okay, I've been struggling for a long time with porn. How long is it going to take me to recover? Now, I had someone say to me the other day, once an addict, always an addict, right? And I said, no. The idea that if you're once addicted, you're always addicted, that misses the idea of recovery. Recovery has a beginning, a middle, and an end. At the end, you should be recovered. So if you're engaging in the recovery process, first you have to learn how to pivot away from urges and cravings, and understanding that it's hypersexuality for dopamine can really help you. And understanding that if you're caught in hypersexuality, it's almost impossible to have healthy sexuality. You can't discern it. And if you are caught in hypersexuality, you'll have no idea what I'm talking about until you're out of it. That's how it works. When you're out of it, then you can go, oh, now I see the difference. But you have to have a regulated brain. We know at the core of all of this is brain dysfunction. That's the work that me and my team do. We measure how your brain is performing. We move it back into a regulated mode. Then you can pivot from urges and cravings. You can bring the hypersexuality down, which then allows you to rewire your brain in the pleasure pathways back to healthy levels of dopamine from healthy, real-world sources. I'll come back to that in a second. After that, you have to build the foundation of a lifestyle that, like I just said, you're dealing with, you can deal with your negative emotions, you can deal with your natural emotions, you can deal with positive emotions without wanting to amplify them through porn use. Many people do that also. In the end, it's about monitoring your stressors, your stress responses, and being able to manage and mitigate, offset stress, get rid of it, bring it down. Because in the end, we know that stress is the number one thing that pushes people back towards porn and explicit matter, sexual media. You have to build the foundation and protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. So the idea is you pivot. First, you regulate your brain. You pivot. You rewire your brain back to real world healthy sources. Then you stay away from stress, or you manage it really well so you're never at risk of going back. Now, going back to the real world dopamine sources, what does that look like? It looks like doing fun things in your life, doing things that you enjoy, your hobbies, being around people that you enjoy. It's about making sure each day you get outside, you get some sunlight, you work out. It's about having meals with friends and family. And if you can't create those things easily, then you do have to think outside of the box and move towards creating a life that you love. I work with a lot of people. They are not living lives that they love. And you're the creator of your life. We lose sight of that. Who's creating your life? Many people think they're being forced to do a lot of things. And yes, there is societal pressure, there's parent pressure, there's partner pressure, but that's not the same as having to. You don't have to. And I've learned to hold and set and hold boundaries so that I can live the life that I want to. So, I ruffle a lot of feathers sometimes. All right, let me jump in here and see what's shaking here. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so a single person, how is masturbation the key? The answer to that is no, because we know that excessive or compulsive, those are two different things. Masturbation can lead you back or keep you locked in hypersexuality. The easiest way to think about it is the person you have sex with the most is your sex partner, right? So who do you have sex with the most? If it's yourself, if it's a screen, that's your partner. So if you want a partner, which most people do, you cannot be in a partnership with yourself in the screen, because that is your sexual relationship. People forget that. Okay, so let me look at this. Yep, you're right, Zay. Most people have been hypersexual for a really long time. Okay, flatline. It was something flatline. So let's just talk about flatline for a second. Oh, and then I will get back to how long does it take, because I didn't answer that. So flatline is, known as anhedonia. It's low libido, and it comes from the brain dysregulation at the core of going back to explicit matter. So that brain dysregulation is one that needs lots of dopamine. So now what happens to people is if you flooded your brain with way too much dopamine, then it becomes completely desensitized. This is what leads to erectile dysfunction and sexual arousal dysfunctions. Being in a flat line is a sexual arousal dysfunction from all of that dopamine. At the same time, it also can happen as a withdrawal symptom. So if your brain's accustomed to a lot of dopamine and you stop giving it all that dopamine, now it can't feel as good as it used to without that dopamine rush. So many times that's what's at the cause of the flat line. Okay, now going back to how long does it take? The programs that I offer are 4 months long. And 4 months later, you can be recovered. And it's about doing basically all the healthy things, as many healthy things as you can, and none of the unhealthy things. So by reducing or eliminating explicit matter entirely, explicit matter's got to go, reduction of social media and media altogether, probably, by finding real world pleasure and setting up that lifestyle, 4 months later, you're well on your way. You should be feeling and performing better. The problem is if you don't have the right tools and techniques, you stay in a place of struggle and suffering. And like some people have mentioned in the comments, it's up and down, back into relapse, then moving forward. Every time you're doing that, you're basically like back and forth with your brain. What we want is to create new neural pathways, pleasure pathways back into your life, and to let the old ones weed over. But we know that there's a transcription factor in your brain called delta phos-B. It will make it more difficult to succeed in building the new neural pathways if you do fire up those old ones ever. That's why we want to let them die off while we establish the new pathways. It's called Hebb's Law. Neurons that fire together wire together. We want to get wiring together in the healthy direction and let the other ones unwire. Okay, let me go down here. Amigo, about blaming movies and platforms. I try to stay away from blame, if you know what I mean. But, recognizing the role that those things play, it makes it so that you do have to be vigilant in today's day and age. And, I always tell the story that, I'm offered nothing, even though I search the word porn all the time, because I don't visit any sites that have blatant sexuality or even low-key sexual media. I don't visit them. They don't find me. That's the way that the internet works. You click those links, they're going to search you back up. That's how it works. So you can clean up your threads, you can clean up your feeds, and when you go back in, there won't be any there for you. That's what I recommend that people do. Movies, search it up on IMDb. And, I do that because there's nothing worse. If you've sat through a very long sex scene with your mom ever, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I have a lot of kids, so I want to know what the sexual content is when we put a movie on, because I do not want to sit there with them. I do not want them to have to sit there with me, if you know what I mean. So, okay, how to regulate emotional state in the moment of stress. I love it. Great question. That's from Uzair. It requires emotional regulation, which does require a healthier brain performance pattern. High beta is the brain wave, is the brain speed at the core of having a stress response. And the lower your high beta is, the healthier your stress response. So when something stressful happens, I anchor myself in the moment, because my stress response is flight. I want to boogie on out the door. I want to be out of there as soon as possible. I anchor in. I will use my breath very deliberately, calm, slow breathing. It brings high beta down. It regulates the nervous system. I encourage you to think of a few things you can say, like if you're in a moment of conflict with someone, more neutral sayings. So if someone's telling you something and it's heated, you want to slow down and get more time and space, like I've already said. So you could say, tell me your opinion. But you can always leave. Like if you're in an argument with someone, getting time and space, but not in a flight way, saying, you know what, I need to think about this, or I need some time. That's very healthy. Do what you need to do to regulate yourself and come back to it. But like if you're feeling stressed about financial stress, staying in the moment and making a plan to solve the financial problem. That's the more important thing to do, not escaping, because when you escape into porn, guess what? Your financial problems are still there. They're worse, right? So it's important to be able to, but you want to steady your mind by, you can use your breath. What I offer is called neurofeedback. Neurofeedback literally changes the way that your brain is working. So you are calmer and less stressed. So if you're, up for that, that's an option. In the moment, you might need to get time and space and come back to it. But recognize, the healthier your brain is, the better you'll be able to deal with it. So let's see. Lewis Wilson, dopamine supplements, medication, L-tyrosine, Wellbutrin can help reduce porn abstinence and withdrawals. First of all, disclaimer, I cannot tell you what to do about your supplements and medications. All I can do is tell you what I would do. So dopamine supplements, they're precursors like L-tyrosine. They can be really beneficial, especially if you're trying to reboot your dopamine back to the real world and you're detoxing from explicit matter, because you're getting less dopamine over here from an unhealthy source, and a supplement can be a healthy way to boost the dopamine levels in your system. Medication like Wellbutrin, we know that a lot of people will take those medications to kind of level off their mood, because when you're caught in a dopamine dependency, it can impact your ability to have steady mood. It'll increase mood volatility. But medications are, they're like a Band-Aid is the way that I talk about it. For the most part, what it does is reduce hypersexuality, because it's reducing power in the brain. So you haven't solved the underlying problem, but you're not feeling the symptoms anymore from it. Many people don't like the way it feels because it is crushing their libido also by reducing hypersexuality. What I want for people is we reduce hypersexuality, but we reboot healthy libido and healthy sexuality. So in the end, your brain is operating in a healthy mode that never needs hypersexuality anymore, which frees you up to create a healthy sex life in the real world for real world pleasure. Supplements can contribute to that. Usually medications make it difficult for your brain to regulate itself, because it's being regulated artificially into an artificial mode. Hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. Nanak, quick comment on semen retention and not ejaculating. A lot of people are into it. We talked about this last week, that I think it could be really powerful for a time. I don't necessarily think it's very healthy long term. And like I talked about, 4 months is the time frame in what I would think would be kind of like the best case scenario in a recovery journey. We know that a 90-day washout period can be really powerful for people who are not able to turn the hypersexuality off and healthy libido on. So it definitely can serve in those first 30 days, 60 days. This way, hypersexuality is kind of taken out of the game altogether, and it gives you the opportunity to create healthy sexuality. Okay, so let me see. Question from Autumn Ben. How do you set the goal to become porn free? This is a complex, deep end issue, just so you know. It's not a shallow end issue. So if you set the goal, and I talked about this last week, I think, or I've talked about it in some of the videos, the mistake that people make when they set goals is they set an arbitrary goal, and then they don't have the tools, the techniques, the strategies, the game plan, and the support to make sure that that goal is actually achieved. So it's important to get all those things. A cool thing that's happening is that my book, I don't know how many weeks it's coming out, but it's probably around 7 weeks from today, I'm going to guess, so don't hold me to it. It's coming out on March 18th, which is going to be an amazing tool for you to be able to get the book and be able to implement all of the strategies. So, that can be really powerful for you. Let's see. Yeah, you're going to find doctors on YouTube or on the internet that tell you that if you abstain from ejaculating, that it's going to be bad for you in this way or that way. If you have compulsive masturbation, that far outweighs the seeming issues that people can have within 5 days of not ejaculating. One of my mentors said nobody ever died from not ejaculating. Your body will actually purge it itself, which happens to many people when I work with them. But, you know, it's like you can look for what you want to hear so that you can stay caught in compulsive masturbation and porn, or you can think about these things logically for yourself. That's what I want. You know, when you hear people telling you that, and people tell me this all the time, they hear somebody say something and it doesn't compute. Like if you're masturbating frequently and consistently and you're not able to establish the sex life that you want to, and you're caught up in an addiction to porn, then clearly something has to change. And it's the frequent ejaculating for high levels of dopamine that's at the core of that. So, you know, I want everybody to think for themselves. Okay. Yeah. Social media is going to be the biggest pull that we have in our lives right now. It is a call for dopamine. You're doing your work and your brain goes, I have a brilliant idea. I should check what other people are doing in their lives, which it's not even real. It's all fantasy. It's all dopamine. Seeking and searching behavior in itself is a dopamine producing activity. So you have to be really, really careful. Amen Clinic. I'm certified through the Amen Clinic. So yeah, they're a legit company for sure. Dr. Daniel Amen, he's one of the 4 founders in, you know, many different important areas. Let's see, overcome addiction for 2.5 years. Observe that I'm having body physical pains, more anxiety, depression once I hit more than 25 days. Then once I relapse, I feel well. That's dopamine, my friend. That is the perfect way of explaining how you feel when your brain still needs a lot of dopamine, but you're not giving it that dopamine. Then you have physical body pain, you will have headaches, you will have anxiety, depression. But then when you give your brain the high amount of dopamine that it wants, you feel better. It keeps you caught in the loop. That's why the work that we do at Dr. Trish Leigh and Company is pivotal for most people, because we change your brain in all natural, healthy ways so your brain no longer needs high levels of dopamine. When your brain no longer needs high levels of dopamine, then you can abstain and you still feel good. One of my clients, he kept asking me, when am I going to have withdrawal symptoms? When am I going to have them? Month 1 went by, month 2 went by. I'm like, you're not going to have them. You would have had them already. So you don't have withdrawal symptoms if your brain calibrates back to not needing high levels of dopamine. That's the goal. Yeah, soccer legend, definitely. Having a crush for someone in your class, that is the spice of life, my friend. Feeling that attraction towards another human being and being able to be aroused by that, that's what we're talking about here. Getting your brain back on track. Let's see. Question from Gerson about healthy masturbation meditation. How many minutes does it last? What does it look like? It's an embodiment exercise. We talked about it last week. I know it's cheesy sounding, but it totally works if you're trying to be able to abstain from compulsive masturbation. Compulsive masturbation, most people give into the urges. And when you give into an urge, you're giving it power. So I want you to abstain from urges. And when you have a masturbation meditation, you're taking all the oomph out of it, because you're taking the fantasy out of it. You're taking the high level physical sensation out of it. You're teaching your brain to lower that dopamine threshold. So how long? It shouldn't be super long, but there's really no, total, time frame on that. Okay. So let's see what we have here. Thanks. Fam Squad is beautiful. Abhinav. My son's car literally died in the mountains over the weekend, which is about 3.5 hours away. So I had to go pick that man up. And his car's being towed home today. So, but it's all good. Everything's so good. My other son got into Seamus, he got into the college that he wants to go to. So now there'll be 3 of them at colleges, which is so cool. They all go to 3 different colleges, which is really, really neat. His is at the beach, which is totally awesome. Some beach trips in my future, which I'm super excited about. So and all of these things, like, you know, just to bring it back to your brain for a moment, like when your people are accomplishing what they want and you're supporting them in doing it, that's more serotonin. You know, our conversation surrounds dopamine a lot because when you're caught up in porn, it really is a dopamine dependency. But, you know, when you reboot your brain and rewire your brain and reboot your life, you're really going for what's called the happiness trifecta. It's healthier, lower levels of dopamine, but it's combined with serotonin for joy and happiness and oxytocin for connection. That's the spice of life. Hopefully, that's what the crush in your class is involving. I forget who it was. Soccer legend. It was Soccer Legend. You know, hopefully it's that like tingle of life is good, not just I want pleasure. It's I'm happy. You know, check in with yourself. Are you happy? If you're not happy, there's dysfunction in your brain because anxiety and depression come from dysregulated brain patterns. If you struggle with any sexual arousal dysfunctions, there is dysfunction in your brain. That's at the core. I see it in the brain maps that we do. So, you know, happiness trifecta. Are you happy? Can you deal with the stressors? So Duggan calls me, he's like, Ma. I love it. This is what he goes. Yo, Ma. That's what he says all the time. I'm like, okay, he's on a ski trip. So a phone call in the middle of the day that starts with yo, Ma can't be good for him. So, but I'm like, you know what, dude, it is what it is. I'll come pick you up whenever you need me to. And, you know, am I upset about that? No. Do I want to drive 7 hours to the mountains and back? Absolutely not. But, you know, at the same time, it is what it is. Thankfully, I've got my new car, Excalibur, my Tesla X, even though I did have to stop and charge. And the only thing around was a Dollar Tree. But I did get, it's Declan's 21st birthday. I got him a really sweet mug from the Dollar Tree. Oh, Soccer Legend, thank you. I'm here for I'm here for it. Gerson, I don't know about Dr. Rena Malik, but I'm up for it all day long because what I find is that a lot of professionals, you know, they'll read research about what's, you know, quote unquote, healthy in terms of sexuality or not, but it is not including the ideas of compulsive masturbation or addiction to pornography. And you might have heard me say this before, is that this blew my mind, that all studies that surround sexuality or psychology from the last 20 years are skewed, because unless we ask people if they have compulsive masturbation or if they have a porn habit, we are leaving out one incredibly important variable. That's the variable that other professionals either don't know about or they're simply ignoring to be able to tell you what you want to hear. Because guess what people want to hear? They want to hear what they're doing is what they need to be doing. And that's how you get views and likes, telling people, you know how great masturbation is? Do it. It's good for you. And it's bad for you to not do it. That's how you get likes and subscribers. When you show up and go, you know that thing you love so much and you don't want to give it up at all? You have to, because it's bad for your brain and your life. And it's making you anxious and depressed and it's keeping you from the relationship that you want. Nobody wants to hear that, right? But it's the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. So, you know, all day long, I'm here for the conversations because that's the way that, yeah, I love it. Acne clearing up. Acne is toxins in your system. When you consume pornography and compulsive masturbation, you're basically putting your nervous system in autonomic nervous system dysfunction. You're jamming it up, which means the toxins stay stuck in your system. You let things flow through improved brain health, and guess what? Your acne will start going away too. Let's see. Uday, let's see here. Married man trying to recover from porn-induced erectile dysfunction, 30-day streak. I would encourage you to be with your wife immediately if you can stay out of hypersexuality, which means fantasy, euphoric recall of any porn. And if you can be with her in a connected way, think happiness trifecta, that's going to help rewire your brain back to real world healthy sexual experiences. But if you can't do that, if you have to go to fantasy to perform, then there is a longer process involved. That's what I help people with primarily in my practice, because when we use technology, we can basically shift your brain back to healthy baseline arousal, which allows you to achieve healthy sexual arousal a lot faster. But I would encourage you to be with her right away. Diamond Mine, do porn brains differ at all from other addiction brains? Yeah, you know what? I have found one very important aspect in brains that are addicted to pornography. And the primary aspect is that the brain loses the muscle memory of calming itself down because it's accustomed to being shifted into artificial neutral for extreme calm by pornography. And I think that's a new finding in the research. Okay, we're going to wrap it up in just a minute. So, thank you, Forever Bee. Let's see. Best foods to help fast forward the healing. Okay, in the short run, staying with, I love it. Happiness trifecta tattoo. I love it. I absolutely love it, Abhinav. So I appreciate that. You're going to have to send me a picture of that, my friend. Send it to info@Dr. Trish Leigh. Okay, so best foods. Foods are very dopamine producing. A lot of people I work with, they'll get hooked on food while they're staying away from porn and explicit matter. But you want to think about making your food, because if you DoorDash food, you're hitting the easy button. Food's coming, instant gratification, not having to work for it at all. That's the opposite of delayed gratification, which is what we're trying to teach your brain. Also, oh, Jamie in the house. Hey, Jamie. She found a way to get here. Beautiful. We're going to wrap up pretty soon because I'm trying to stay on track for all the people who, I promised I won't be here all day long, but I'm so glad you're here, Jamie. So foods, going back to foods, is you want to eat healthy foods. And I want my husband to come on this show because he is really into nutrition, and we had the conversation, I forget what we were talking about. We were having a conversation that most people don't know how to eat. And my daughter, Fiona, called me. She's like, I'm trying to eat better. I don't know how to do it. All Declan eats is chicken and rice. And I told that man he's got to put a vegetable in his mouth, but he eats really lean and he works out. But eating the rainbow, eating mostly protein, then eating a healthy carb. And the easiest way to think about it is rice. Pasta is not that great for you, but pasta or potatoes, they're all kind of like, your carbs that you would eat with dinner. More protein than carbs, making sure you're eating the rainbow, getting the vegetables in there. And I make a green smoothie every day. Made one this morning. It has protein in it. It's a protein shake, but it's made with cucumber and celery. It's your standard green smoothie out there, but it's really good for you. It's like drinking a salad. I go down there, I pour a cup, drink my salad, basically back to life. But then you can add in dark chocolate. If you like coffee or tea, a lot of times that will give you dopamine. It'll give you a way of feeling relaxed. But primarily eating healthy meals that have protein, carbs, and vegetables, sitting down and eating it with people, or not being on a screen and just engaging with your life when you eat, being present. Diamond Mine, thanks. My hair is definitely growing out these days. So let's see here. Let me see what we got. Concussion. 3 different concussions, month apart. Here's what I can tell you, Jason, is that concussion does not have to mess your brain up for the rest of your life. I know it sounds like I'm constantly trying to sell neurofeedback. I'm not. I'm just very passionate about neurofeedback. I have worked with a lot of athletes, and a concussion is basically, I call it a low and slow pattern in the brain. The powers drop low, slowing increases. And if you do that 3 times, that's the 3 and out rule. But what neurofeedback does is it brings the power back up and the slowing down. It can be reversed. No joke, I'm telling you, it can be reversed. So reach out to Jamie, actually is doing consultations. Reach out to Dr. Trish Leigh and company so we can help you out. Let's see. Yeah. Dopamine Nation. Love it as a book. Let's see what we got here. Annette. So Annette has a question about, I feel that my boyfriend cheated on me by going to porn. How do I get through that? Well, let me tell you something. The science shows that when a partner uses porn, it is perceived as infidelity. And it registers in the partner's brain as betrayal trauma. We know this. And I know the brain pattern. We work with partners too. So Annette, we have a partner called Sanity After Betrayal. but you may not want to hear it, but you, again, go back to, you got to hear what you got to hear, is that, you know, what I'm talking about here with porn is that it's highly addictive. It grabbed your boyfriend's brain when he was young. An underdeveloped brain that is exposed to that high level of dopamine from porn. Most people find porn in their childhood or their adolescence. So it's not his fault. And I know it's difficult to hear as a partner, but being addicted to porn is basically, you know, not his fault, but it is his responsibility. And this is where establishing and holding healthy boundaries, porn or me, go figure it out. You need to figure out the recovery. That's the healthy boundary. When you set that healthy boundary, what happens in your partner's brain is it snaps a little. It realizes, I probably am addicted. Admitting you're addicted to something, very difficult for the average person. When you go, you know, people can convince themselves it's just habits, they're not hurting anybody. Yeah, maybe it's gotten away a little, but addiction is a big word to have to deal with in your own life. That can help your boyfriend get into the recovery program that will help him. And I already said this here too. This is a deep end problem, not a shallow end. It's not like he can just go, oh, I'm going to quit porn and it happens. It's comprehensive. In the program that I offer, it's 94 lessons with 94 action steps. That's why 4 months later, you're done or you're well on your way if you put 94 new things in place and you know what it's doing for your brain. It's comprehensive. So, let me see here. I'm going to answer 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll hit the road for today, but we will be back next week. And hopefully my setup will get better and better. So let's see. Whenever I see a woman, I just start imagining having sex with her. How can I control it? That's hypersexuality, again, at its finest or worst, I guess. So this comes from porn and people don't understand it. If you are watching, you are what you eat, right? You are what you eat. You are what you consume. So if you're consuming scenes and scenarios that, you know, you see a woman and immediately she wants to have sex with you, you start imagining that. And when you imagine it, the dopamine's already flowing. So what happens to a lot of the clients I work with, they go to the grocery store, everybody they look at becomes a sexual object that they imagine doing the sexual things that they viewed. And I probably told you this here before. One class that I took in college stuck in my brain so hard, which is really interesting because it was a class on memory. And the class basically said, like, the more you're putting things into your brain, the more it's going to be at the top of your mind. Obvious, right? But it's not just time away from that thing. It's putting new things into your mind that basically buries those old memories. And, you know, when my daughter goes, remember we talked about this 3 weeks ago, I'll say to her, dude, the number of things I put in my brain in the last 3 weeks, no wonder why I don't remember that. I put thousands of things in my brain each week. So here's the idea. If you're putting real world pleasure and you're getting, you know, hobbies and you're reading a healthy sci-fi fantasy book instead of consuming sexual content, and you're getting a new show, you're binge watching a new cool show. I started watching The Recruit. I don't know if I'd call it amazing, but it's not bad. So, you know, I'm watching a show and then I think, oh, I want to find out, you know, if he gets the bad guy. Now I've got all these new things in my mind, and that sexual content and that euphoric recall goes away. That's what we're talking about here. Gerson, I would say no. Softcore porn cannot be viewed in a healthy way for someone who never watched porn before, like if they saw softcore porn on a one-off, what we know is that after 2 exposures to the supernormal stimulus of porn, your brain will readjust to need more dopamine. So with the idea of softcore porn, you see softcore porn one time, your brain adjusts because it gets the dopamine flood, higher levels. And if you keep consuming it, there will be tolerance building and escalation. It's how it works. That's why most people cannot consume porn at all, because if they continue to consume habitually, even if it's softcore, there is tolerance building and escalation. It's the essence of compulsion and addiction. So the way that it works is use becomes abuse, becomes compulsion, becomes addiction. So, continued use tends to lead in that direction. Okay, so let us see here. We covered foods. Awesome. Chris Cloud gave up masturbation completely. and feeling urges. Of course you are, because your brain's looking for the dopamine. It will resensitize. So you want to know some things you can do to resensitize. I know people don't get the one-to-one on if you go into your life for real world pleasure. Like, let's say you love playing darts, and right now your brain needs massive amounts of dopamine from sexual content. But now you start playing darts 3 times a week, and your brain is getting healthy levels of dopamine from darts. It's not sexual, but we're rebooting, bringing down hypersexuality. You go play darts, you're starting to get dopamine flowing from your real life. Then if you have a partner, if you're with your partner and you're having an experience in building arousal over time, polar opposite of porn, the building of that arousal is what helps you to be able to then resensitize those dopamine receptors. The key, no desensitizing. So no porn, no masturbation, no fantasy, no desensitizing. Every time you desensitize, you are taking steps back. All resensitizing. Healthy pleasure from healthy foods, from good conversation, from darts if you like it, from pool if you like it, from shows that you like, from books that you like, from being with people, from work that you like. Get back on purpose in your work. They all are dopamine producing. Just once you're addicted to porn, they don't give you enough dopamine. What I want you to do is get back into all of them, and they'll all start giving you lower levels of dopamine, resetting the pleasure pathways back into your life. ED pills will not get rid of porn-induced erectile dysfunction. What it does is basically it creates artificial arousal in your body, but it actually blocks your brain's ability to feel aroused by itself. So that's why you can't climax with a partner, not because it's removing PIED. Think Band-Aid. Remember how I went back to the medication? So that's a medication that it's a Band-Aid. It's going to artificially try to put your system towards arousal, but it means you didn't get the opportunity to become aroused by your partner. So for many people, it only gets them part of the way, if that. For a lot of people I work with, the meds stop working entirely. So Ben Gao, if you have been away for 400 days and you still have urges, you have not rewired your brain. You haven't resensitized. So this is what I was talking about at the beginning, that, you know, if you stay in this place of struggling for 400 days, like inevitably there's going to be a relapse. When you rewire your brain, there are no more urges. The urges come from a brain that needs high level of dopamine not getting it. So when you recalibrate your brain to not need high levels of dopamine, there's no urges. Long story short. And that's what we do at Dr. Trish Leigh and Company. Okay, one more minute. We're going to wrap up. So let's see. Yep, a lot of good books here being recommended. Let me just see real quick. And then we're moving on. I have to go work out. It's a glorious day in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where I live, and I'm going outside because it's been a busy week. Let's see what we've got here. Yeah, it does feel like a fight of the mind. Truth Seeker, I just wanted to share with you, my friend, that there are some people in the disinformation campaign out there, so you really have to be selective. And it goes back to what I said, you know, truth is truth. Like, you can parse through what you know to be true, even if there's science out there, because there are people out there making fake science. So you have to be really aware of that. And there's actually some information coming on that. So yeah, ED is probably one of the worst things. And that's, I think, the biggest pain point from porn is that it's causing ED of people all across the world. And it's really devastating for relationships. All right, I'm going to wrap up for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Come back next week. We're going to dive back in. Same bat time, same bat channel. Bring your questions, and we can, dive back in. And I'm so glad you're all here. Sorry, Drip Serpent. I got to go, man. Got to stay on track in my schedule. But I'm so glad you're here today. And we're going to be back next week. Yes, lifelong PE can be healed, Olivia. Yes, it can. So, you know, think your brain has the ability to self-heal. It can do it. So just know that, okay? Yep. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.